13 minutes to 7. Even when the national lockdowns are lifted, local lockdowns may follow when outbreaks occur. The hospital in Weston-super-Mare has suffered just such an outbreak. It closed its doors to new patients because of a high number of coronavirus cases and is to stay shut to new admissions for at least a week. Let's talk now to the Conservative MP for Weston-super-Mare, John Penrose. Morning to you.
Good morning.
Does it feel like this may be coming under control?
It's too early to say, but at the moment everyone is very hopeful, obviously. The important thing to remember is that the hospital wasn't overwhelmed by a massive flood of cases. In fact, it was a bit different from that. What happened was that they discovered that some of the staff had got infected with the virus but weren't showing any symptoms. So even though there were spare beds in the hospital and still capacity at that stage, what they realized what they had to do was to sort of put the hospital itself into lockdown, because otherwise they might unintentionally and inadvertently start becoming a center of infection themselves. So that's what's gone on. It isn't that there's this sort of massive surge. There's been a bit of an uptick in local infections, but at the moment the hospital's effectively locked down and they're isolating staff that are infected and that sort of stuff. And obviously everybody is hoping and praying that's enough to bring the thing under control.
What makes it interesting to people beyond Weston, I think, is the possibility that the hospital is the source of an infection rather than the solution, if you like, to the infection. And also, being a big seaside resort, the question I suspect you don't know the answer to yet, which is, has someone brought it to you from outside?
And on the first of those points, I think everyone was astonished by the number of staff that had the infection but weren't showing symptoms, and that was a very unexpected result. It's part of a routine test program, and so they realised that this was unusual and they had to react pretty promptly. But you're right.
This was 40% of those tested. It wasn't all the staff tested, was it, Mr. Penrose? But 40% of those did test.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's happened is they've since then obviously been testing lots of other staff to make sure that they've got the full picture and they put all the right people into isolation and those sorts of things. But to your other point about, are there other sources of infection? Could it be a local care home? Could it be visitors to the seafront? Could it be 101 other things? At the moment, no one's sure. And there is a series of tests which are being run by Public Health England. I'm hoping to get a briefing on that, perhaps even later on today, which should identify if there's more than one flavour of the virus circulating locally, and if there's only one, that probably means that there's only one source of infection. If there's more than one, then we may have other things we've got to deal with. But until we know, the important thing is obviously not to go blundering about, because if we close the wrong things or have a local lockdown here and not there, we might actually not be breaking the chain of infection. We've got to be led by the science and make sure that we are using a rifle shot, not a blunderbuss.
The test and trace system that was unveiled yesterday, in theory, should deal with this sort of local outbreak by allowing, rigorous testing and tracing in a small area. Can you tell yet whether it's really ready? Because some MPs heard from the woman in charge, Dido Hardy, it won't really be ready in local areas until the end of June.
The short answer is I'm told that there will already be that kind of activity happening locally. Obviously, the thing was only launched 24 hours ago, so we will have to wait and see. I should also add, for the sake of completeness and disclosure, Dido is actually my wife, so I will be able to tell if it's happening locally or not.
Well, at least you'll have inside information. Is she feeling confident
I will know who to complain to if it's not working, certainly.
Well, I'm rather tempted to say hand over the phone and we can talk to her about it.
She's working so flipping hard that I've hardly seen her, to be honest.
No, I can imagine. Well, there we are. Well, consider this a bid, Mr. Penrose, if you would. We should talk to her directly, but we're grateful to talk to you. We look forward to talking to her soon about test and trace. John Penrose, MP for Weston-super-Mare. Thanks for joining us.